In the stillness of the night, a chilling silence enveloped the fields, wrapping every blade of grass in an uneasy calm. Just moments before the mysterious formation emerged, something inexplicable stirred in the air, a sensation that prickled the skin and sent shivers down the spine. Footprints, frozen and untouched, appeared as if leading directly into the heart of the geometric anomaly, yet no figure was ever seen leaving them behind. As the moonlight danced on the contours of the earth, a sense of foreboding hung thick, whispering secrets that only the night could understand. What had walked this path before the formation materialized? The answers lay hidden in the shadows, teasing the mind with a promise of revelation and terror. The question lingered like a distant echo. Could this be a premonition of something far beyond comprehension? In the stillness of the night, a chilling silence enveloped the fields, wrapping every blade of grass in an uneasy calm. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the earth itself held its breath in expectation of something extraordinary. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the rural landscape, its light glimmering like silver on the dew-kissed grass. This was no ordinary night. It was one that carried a weight, a sense of dread that seemed to seep into the bones of the land. As the shadows deepened, a peculiar sensation began to stir in the air, a faint vibration that shivered through the stillness. It was a sound that didn't belong to the night, a distant thrum, almost like the reverberation of a heartbeat, echoing softly through the expanse of the fields. The usual nocturnal chorus of crickets and rustling leaves fell eerily silent, as if nature itself paused to listen, to feel, to comprehend the inexplicable presence that was about to unfold. "Did you hear that?" whispered Sarah, her voice barely breaking the heavy silence. She stood still, her breath visible in the cool air, her eyes scanning the dark horizon. Beside her, Tom, a local farmer, frowned, straining to catch the sound that had made them both shudder. "It's probably just the wind," he replied, though uncertainty laced his tone. "But it feels different tonight." Footprints appeared, frozen and untouched, leading toward a central point in the field, where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver. They were not mere impressions in the earth. They were distinct, impossibly clear, each step marked with an unsettling precision that suggested intent. Yet the figure that had made them was nowhere to be seen, as if swallowed by the very darkness that surrounded the formation that had yet to reveal itself. The footprints were not just a path. They were a riddle, a question posed to the night. "Look at these," Sarah said, kneeling to inspect the prints. "They're too perfect, almost like someone was trying to leave a message." Tom crouched beside her, the faintest hint of fear creeping into his voice. "Or something. What if it's not human?" He swallowed hard, glancing around as if expecting to see a figure emerge from the shadows. With each passing moment, the atmosphere grew heavier, the silence deepening into an almost tangible entity. The wind, usually a gentle companion in the rural night, shifted. It turned cold, carrying with it a metallic scent that was both unfamiliar and unsettling. It clung to the nostrils, filling the air with an essence that felt wrong, out of place. All around, the fields lay in stillness, yet a tension crackled beneath the surface, a faraway whisper hinting at the unnatural. "Do you smell that?" Sarah asked, wrinkling her nose. "Yeah, it's like metal." Tom's voice trailed off as he stood scanning the field. "I've never smelled anything like it out here." Suddenly, the crickets resumed their chirping, but it was a frantic, discordant symphony that only heightened the sense of foreboding. The two exchanged tense glances, their instincts screaming that something was very wrong. As the moonlight danced on the contours of the earth, the outlines of the footprints became sharper, darker against the pale soil. They seemed to pulse with a life of their own, beckoning, drawing the eye closer. What had walked this path before the formation materialized? The answer lingered just beyond reach, as elusive as the flickering shadows that played at the edges of perception. The terrain, usually so familiar, now felt alien, transformed by an unseen hand into a canvas of the uncanny. Then, just as the dread reached a fever pitch, a sound interrupted the stillness, a low, resonant hum that began to rise from the very ground beneath the footprints. It was a frequency that rattled the bones and resonated in the chest, a vibration that seemed to resonate with the very core of existence. In that moment, the world narrowed down to a singular focus, the air thickening with a palpable energy that thrummed in harmony with the heartbeat of the earth. The sound swelled, wrapping around the landscape like a shroud, reverberating off the distant barn, echoing through the trees. "Can you feel that?" Sarah whispered, her skin prickling. It's alive." Tom nodded, eyes wide, heart pounding. "We should get back to the house. This isn't right." But before they could move, the formation began to materialize, a geometric anomaly that defied logic and reason. It rose from the earth like a specter, a mesmerizing pattern that twisted and turned in the moonlight, casting shadows that danced like spirits across the field. The shapes were intricate, mathematical, yet spoke of something primal, something ancient. They were not just lines and curves, they were a language, a message etched into the very fabric of the earth, waiting to be deciphered. But as the formation took shape, the footprints remained, leading directly into the heart of this cosmic puzzle, and yet there was no sign of the entity that had created them. A deepening sense of dread settled in as the realization dawned. Something had walked this path, something that now bore witness to the unfolding mystery, something that perhaps still lingered just out of sight, hidden in the shadows of the night. As the tension mounted, a chill swept through the air, and the hairs on the back of the neck stood on end. The sensation of being observed crept into the minds of those who dared to look, an instinctual knowing that something was watching, waiting. It was an unseen veil that separated the known from the unknown, a threshold that once crossed could never be returned from. The question echoed, haunting and relentless. Was this a mere coincidence? Or was it a premonition of something far beyond comprehension? The answer hung in the air, thick with uncertainty and fear, as the night continued its vigil, whispering secrets to those brave enough to listen. It was a night that would be remembered, a night where frozen footprints led into the heart of an enigma, where the boundaries of reality blurred, and the whispers of the cosmos beckoned from the shadows. The moon hung low in the sky, a silver sentinel casting its ethereal glow over the vast expanse of the rural landscape. The night air was thick with an unsettling stillness, the kind that draped itself over everything like a heavy shroud. Every rustle of leaves, every distant call of an owl seemed amplified, echoing through the trees as if nature itself was holding its breath. The road leading back to the house felt like a labyrinth, twisting and turning, pulling Sarah and Tom deeper into the grip of the unknown. The darkness enveloped them, and with each step, the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Sarah pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders, the chill seeping into her bones. It was more than just the cold, it was a sensation that dug into her skin, leaving a trail of goosebumps in its wake. The air was charged, vibrating with an energy that was palpable, almost electric. A low hum resonated in the distance, a sound that was both alluring and foreboding, drawing them closer to the heart of the mystery. As they approached the clearing, the geometric formation revealed itself in all its unsettling glory. Patterns etched into the earth, spirals and circles intertwined, each line meticulously crafted, as if by a hand that understood the very essence of mathematics. The shapes shimmered in the moonlight, casting a ghostly glow that illuminated the field in a surreal light. But it wasn't just the sight that captivated them. It was the sound, a low, rhythmic pulse that seemed to emanate from the ground itself, thrumming in time with their racing hearts. Tom's breath hitched as he took in the absurdity of it all. This can't be real," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The sight before them felt like a waking dream, unnerving in its perfection. The air grew heavier, thick with an unspoken tension, as if the very fabric of reality was stretching, ready to snap at any moment. Sarah could feel the weight of their surroundings, the shadows that danced just beyond the edge of the formation, beckoning them to venture further into the abyss. She squinted into the darkness, searching for any sign of life, any clue as to what had created this impossibility. But there was nothing, only the oppressive silence that hung like a fog, wrapping around them, squeezing the air from their lungs. The animals, usually a chorus of night sounds, had fallen eerily silent. The crickets that had serenaded the evening now seemed to be mute, their absence amplifying the strange vibrations that filled the air. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a warning, perhaps, or an acknowledgement of something that lay just beyond comprehension. What if something is out there? Sarah's voice trembled as she glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see a figure emerging from the shadows, an entity that defied the laws of nature. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, her instinct screaming that they were not alone. The sensation of being watched intensified, prickling her skin, urging her to flee, but something held her in place, a morbid curiosity that anchored her feet to the ground. Tom stepped forward, the bravado of youth battling with the instinctual urge to retreat. "We need to take a closer look," he urged, though even he could hear the quiver in his voice. Cautiously, he approached the edge of the formation, drawn by an invisible thread that seemed to pull him into the depths of the geometric design. Each step felt heavy, as if the earth itself was resisting, warning him against trespassing into this alien territory. As he knelt to examine the intricate patterns, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the field, rustling the grass and sending a chill down their spines. It carried with it an odor, metallic, sharp, like blood mixed with something ancient and forgotten. Sarah's stomach twisted at the scent, a primal instinct urging her to turn and flee, but her feet remained rooted, unwilling to abandon Tom to whatever lay ahead. A distant rumble echoed through the trees, low and menacing, like the growl of a great beast stirring from slumber. The sound reverberated through the ground, vibrating in their bones, sending tremors of fear coursing through their veins. They exchanged glances, eyes wide, hearts racing in sync with the strange energy that enveloped them. "Did you hear that?" Tom asked, his voice barely above a whisper, the bravado all but extinguished. Before Sarah could respond, the lights, those inexplicable flickering orbs, reappeared on the horizon, hovering just above the treetops. They glowed with an otherworldly luminescence, illuminating the darkness with hues of blue and green that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the formation below. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a dance of light that seemed to communicate in a language lost to time. "What are they?" Sarah breathed, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile illusion. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," Tom replied, his composure cracking. He felt the pull of the lights, a magnetic force that beckoned him to step forward, to abandon reason and surrender to the unknown. But before they could retreat, the ground beneath their feet shifted, a tremor that felt like the earth itself was awakening. The lights flickered violently, pulsating in a chaotic rhythm that seemed to echo their mounting fear. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling, the boundaries between the known and unknown blurring into a tapestry of cosmic mystery. In that moment, Sarah felt something, an energy, a force that transcended the physical world, brushing against her consciousness like a whisper from the void. It was a sensation that spoke of ancient truths and forbidden knowledge, a fleeting glimpse into a realm that lay just beyond the veil of human understanding. "Run!" Tom shouted, breaking the trance as he grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her away from the formation, away from the lights that now pulsed with an urgency that felt alive. They stumbled back down the path, the whispers of the night following them, taunting and teasing, as if the cosmos itself was laughing at their feeble attempts to escape. The sensation of being watched lingered, a shroud of dread wrapping around them, tightening with each hurried step away from the enigma that had unfolded before them. As they reached the edge of the clearing, the world behind them began to fade, the lights dimming until they were nothing more than distant glimmers, flickering out like dying stars. But the echoes of that night, the imprint of something greater than themselves, would haunt them long after they had fled the field, leaving behind only the cold grip of fear and the lingering question: what truly lay beyond the boundaries of their understanding? The night deepened around them, enveloping Sarah and Tom in a cloak of darkness that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. As they ran, the gravel path crunched beneath their hurried footsteps, each sound echoing in the stillness, amplifying the tension that thickened the air like a fog. The world they left behind felt unreal, as if it had been swallowed by a void, leaving only the sensation of dread lingering in their chests. "Did you hear that?" Sarah gasped, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. The silence was oppressive, but within it, a faint hum began to emerge, an unsettling resonance that vibrated through the ground, crawling up their legs like the chill of an approaching storm. Tom paused for a moment, eyes darting toward the field where the lights had danced so tantalizingly. The hum escalated, morphing into a low drone that seemed to echo the very essence of their fear. It was as if the night itself was alive, whispering secrets in a language they could not comprehend. "It's just the wind," he lied, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. The wind, however, carried something else, an undercurrent of anticipation, charged with a sense of impending revelation. They pressed on, but the pull of the field remained, a magnetic force that tugged at their thoughts, urging them to turn back, to confront the unknown that lay just beyond the tree line. With each step, the unease grew, a palpable energy that wrapped around them, thick and suffocating. The scent of damp earth and wild grass filled their lungs, mixing with a metallic tang that hung in the air, reminiscent of old coins or blood. Suddenly the drone shifted, morphing into a cacophony of sounds that sliced through the night, a series of sharp, metallic clinks, punctuated by a low, guttural rumble. It seemed to emerge from the very soil, a sound that was both foreign and familiar, vibrating through their bones like an ancient bell tolling in the distance. "We have to keep moving," Tom urged, his voice strained with urgency. Yet the curiosity gnawed at them, an insatiable itch that demanded to be scratched. As they reached a clearing, the two of them halted, breathless and wide-eyed, the allure of the unknown still pulling at them like a siren's call. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an ethereal glow that illuminated the edge of the field, revealing the intricate geometry of what lay before them. The shapes formed a pattern that seemed impossibly perfect, a celestial design etched into the very fabric of the earth. The soil was pressed down, forming circles and lines that spiraled outward, as if a cosmic artist had been at work. "Look at those shapes," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "They're not just random." Tom squinted, his heart racing. "It's like they were made with intention." The words hung heavy in the air, laden with an unspoken realization that they were standing on the precipice of something extraordinary, yet terrifying. The formation seemed alive, pulsating with an energy that radiated warmth and fear in equal measure. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the noise ceased. The world fell silent. The usual sounds of the night, chirping crickets, rustling leaves, vanishing into an eerie stillness. It was a silence so profound that it felt like a living entity, pressing against them, demanding attention. Sarah felt her skin prickle, a chill racing down her spine. "What if we're not alone?" she breathed, scanning the edges of the darkness, half expecting to see eyes watching from the shadows. Tom shook his head. "We need to go. This isn't right." But even as he spoke, a part of him, a primal instinct, urged him to stay, to delve deeper into the mystery that unfolded before them. The air shimmered with tension, thick and electric, as if the very atmosphere were charged with anticipation. Just then, a flash of light flickered at the edge of the field, a quicksilver gleam that sliced through the darkness, illuminating the formations in a surreal glow. It was gone in an instant, leaving only the afterimage burned into their retinas, a fleeting glimpse of something far beyond their comprehension. "What was that?" Sarah's voice was a mix of awe and terror. "I don't know," Tom replied, heart pounding against his ribcage like a caged animal. The lights had returned, but now they hovered just above the formations, casting long shadows that twisted and writhed as if animated by an unseen force. The shapes beneath them shifted slightly, as if the earth itself was breathing, exhaling a deep sigh of secrets long buried. The drone returned, louder this time, resonating through the air like a call to the cosmos. It was almost musical, a haunting melody that echoed through the field, wrapping around them, pulling them closer to the center of the mystery. The hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stood on end, and she felt the urge to step forward, to dance with the unknown, to embrace the inexplicable. But the rational part of her mind screamed for caution, urging her to flee. "Tom," she said, her voice trembling, "what if it's trying to communicate?" "Or what if it's dangerous?" he countered, but even as he spoke, he felt the magnetic pull of the lights, the drumbeat of the unknown calling to him. It was a temptation he could hardly resist. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the darkness, a sound that shattered the fragile illusion of safety they had clung to. It was followed by a low rumble, reverberating through the ground, as if the world was trembling in response to their presence. The lights flickered violently, a chaotic dance that seemed to echo the mounting fear in their hearts. In that moment, Sarah felt it again, the energy, the force brushing against her consciousness. It was intoxicating, laced with danger and allure, a whisper from the void that spoke of ancient truths and forbidden knowledge. She glanced at Tom, his expression a mix of fear and fascination, and she knew they stood at a crossroads. "Run!" she shouted, breaking the spell that held them captive. Tom's eyes widened, and without hesitation he grabbed her hand, pulling her away from the pulsating lights, away from the cosmic enigma that had beckoned them with a siren's song. As they fled, the whispers of the night followed them, taunting and teasing, as if the cosmos itself was laughing at their feeble attempts to escape the unknown. The sensation of being watched lingered, a shroud of dread wrapping around them, tightening with each hurried step away from the field. As they reached the edge of the clearing, the world behind them began to fade, the lights dimming until they were nothing more than distant glimmers, flickering out like dying stars. But the echoes of that night, the imprint of something greater than themselves, would haunt them long after they had fled the field. The cold grip of fear entwined with a lingering question. What truly lay beyond the boundaries of their understanding? The silence had returned, heavy and oppressive, as Sarah and Tom stumbled through the dense underbrush, their hearts pounding like war drums in their chests. The moon, a pale observer in the vast expanse of night, cast a silver glow that flickered through the branches above them, creating a dance of shadows that seemed to mock their flight. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig echoed in their ears, amplifying the sensation of being pursued by something unseen, something that thrived in the darkness they had unwittingly trespassed upon. As they reached the dirt road, the air shifted, growing colder, laced with an unfamiliar metallic scent that hung in the atmosphere like a shroud. It was as if the very essence of the night had changed, becoming denser, more alive. Sarah paused, glancing back toward the field, her breath catching in her throat as she saw a flicker of light in the distance, brighter now, pulsating with an almost rhythmic intensity. It was a beacon, calling to them, promising answers, yet wrapped in an unmistakable aura of danger. "Did you see that?" Tom's voice was barely a whisper, edged with a mix of disbelief and fear. He stood frozen, torn between the impulse to run and the insatiable curiosity that pulled him back toward the inexplicable phenomenon they had just escaped. "It's not safe, Tom." Sarah's voice rose, panic threading through her words. "We need to go." But the allure of the lights was palpable, a siren song that reverberated through the very air they breathed. The hum of the field called to them, a deep resonance that seemed to vibrate within their bones, igniting a primal instinct buried deep within. It was a tantalizing mix of fear and fascination, a cosmic dance that beckoned them to come closer, to understand what lay beyond the veil of their mundane lives. "Listen," he said, his eyes wide with a mix of wonder and dread as he stepped closer to the edge of the road. "What if it's trying to tell us something? What if it's—" "Tom, don't!" Sarah interrupted, grabbing his arm, her fingers digging into his skin as if she could physically tether him to the safety of their world. The buzzing in the air intensified, and she could feel it in her chest, a deep pulse that matched her racing heart. "We don't know what it is. We can't just—" Before she could finish, another crack split the night, sharper than the last, followed by a series of low, guttural sounds that rolled across the landscape like thunder. This was not the rumble of distant storms. It was something else, something ancient and foreboding. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly as if responding to the commands of an unseen force, and Sarah felt the hairs on her arms stand on end. "Do you feel that?" Tom asked, his voice barely more than a breath, his eyes wide. "Yes, I feel it," she replied, her voice trembling with the weight of unspoken fears. "It's like... it's alive." The very earth seemed to thrum with a heartbeat, echoing the rhythm of the lights, and for a fleeting moment she felt a strange connection to it, a whisper of understanding that sent chills cascading down her spine. Then, abruptly, the lights surged, illuminating the field with a blinding brilliance that made them squint. The ground was transformed, revealing intricate patterns that twisted and turned in geometric perfection. The formations were impossibly complex, a tapestry of nature and mystery woven together in a way that defied reason. The air crackled with energy, and Sarah's breath quickened as she realized that whatever had occurred in that field was beyond comprehension, beyond the boundaries of human understanding. "Sarah, look." Tom pointed, his voice rising in excitement, but there was a tremor beneath it, a fear that lingered like a shadow. She turned to see the lights drop suddenly, pulsing in a synchronized rhythm, as if they were breathing, inhaling and exhaling in a cosmic dance that held them captive. In that moment, the world around them fell into silence, a profound stillness that enveloped the landscape. The sounds of the night, the rustling leaves, the chirping crickets, the distant call of an owl, vanished, replaced by the hum of the lights, a low, vibrating sound that resonated deep within their chests. It was mesmerizing, beautiful, yet terrifying, and Sarah felt as if time itself had come to a standstill. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling as she clutched Tom's arm, urging him to feel the weight of the moment. "Yes," he replied, his gaze locked on the lights, his expression caught between awe and terror. "It's like a language." A sudden flash of insight struck Sarah, an understanding that this was more than just a phenomenon. It was a message, an invitation, perhaps even a warning. Yet what kind of invitation could come from such a place? What kind of message was hidden in the intricate designs that sprawled across the field, shimmering under the cold gaze of the moon? As if in answer, the lights began to pulse faster, a frantic rhythm that echoed the mounting tension in the air. The ground shook again, more violently this time, as if the earth itself was responding to the energy radiating from the formation. Fear clawed at Sarah's insides, but curiosity held her fast, a tether to the enigma that had unfolded before them. "Tom," she breathed, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. "We have to go back. We have to understand." But even as she spoke, a voice inside her screamed against it. The universe was vast, its mysteries unfathomable, and they were but mere mortals. Fragile and insignificant against the backdrop of cosmic wonders. What if understanding came at a price? What if the knowledge they sought was more dangerous than the unknown? As her heart raced, the lights flared once more, illuminating the night with an intensity that sent shadows dancing across the landscape. In that blinding moment, everything seemed to freeze, a snapshot of clarity in a world cloaked in mystery. And then, just as quickly, darkness enveloped them once again, leaving only the echo of their fear and the unshakable sensation that something, somewhere, was watching them. The night stretched out before them, laden with unspoken questions and an unresolved tension that wrapped around their hearts like a vice. They stood at the precipice of discovery, yet the abyss of the unknown loomed larger than ever, a haunting reminder of the thin veil that separated them from what lay beyond. And as they lingered on the threshold of understanding, the cosmos whispered its secrets, leaving them poised between fear and fascination, as the night deepened into an unsettling silence. The night settled into an eerie stillness, the kind that muffles sound and amplifies the pulse of one's own heartbeat. Sarah and Tom found themselves rooted to the spot, the air thick with an unnameable tension that seemed to vibrate through their very bones. It was as if the earth beneath their feet had become an extension of the formation, alive, breathing, and whispering secrets that danced just out of reach of comprehension. "Did you see that?" Tom's voice trembled, barely breaking the silence, but it echoed in the vast emptiness around them. He was staring at the field, eyes wide as if they could capture the fleeting remnants of the otherworldly lights. It was like they were communicating. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. The sounds of the night had shifted, morphing into a symphony of subtle vibrations that resonated with the pulsating lights. The wind carried a low hum, almost melodic, interspersed with the rustling of leaves that seemed to whisper warnings of their own. The stillness of the night was punctuated by distant rustlings, the call of nocturnal creatures, but they felt more like echoes of a forgotten voice, urging them to retreat, to abandon their quest for understanding before it was too late. "Maybe we should just go," she suggested hesitantly, her pulse quickening as a chill swept through the air, wrapping around her like a shroud. The shadows cast by the flickering lights danced erratically across the ground, creating shapes that shifted and morphed, teasing the edges of her vision. "We don't know what this is." Tom shook his head, defiance igniting in his gaze. "But we can't just walk away. What if this is important? What if it's something that needs to be understood?" His determination was palpable, a flicker of bravery that clashed with the dread settling in the pit of Sarah's stomach. As if in response to their burgeoning conflict, the lights erupted in a flurry of colors, blue, gold, and a deep crimson that felt almost alive as it surged across the field. The geometric patterns that sprawled beneath them seemed to twist, the angles sharp and precise like some ancient language inscribed in the very fabric of the earth. Each pulse resonated with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat, synchronizing with their own as they stood frozen, transfixed by the spectacle unfolding around them. Suddenly, the ground trembled once more, a deep rumble that resonated through the air like a warning bell. Sarah felt it in her core, the vibration crawling up her spine, igniting a primal fear. Her instinct screamed at her to flee, but curiosity, that insatiable beast, held her captive. She felt as if she was standing on the precipice of a revelation, her mind racing with questions that threatened to consume her. What were they witnessing? Was this truly a message or a trap set by forces beyond their understanding? The lights began to shift again, forming intricate shapes that bore an unsettling resemblance to the symbols she had seen in ancient texts, patterns that suggested knowledge lost to time, forgotten by those who had once walked this earth. A shiver traced its way down her arms as she recalled the stories whispered in hushed tones by the elders in town, tales of otherworldly visitors that had left their mark on the land, stories she had dismissed as mere folklore. But now, standing before this cosmic mystery, those tales felt alarmingly close to reality. "Tom, look," she breathed, her eyes darting between the patterns and the pulsing lights. "What if this is connected? What if—" But before she could finish, an unearthly sound pierced the air, a high-pitched whine that morphed into a cacophony of metallic clanging, resonating through the night like the strumming of some cosmic instrument. It sent a jolt through her, a visceral reaction that ignited every nerve ending. The noise grew louder, filling the space around them, drowning out the chirping of crickets and the gentle rustle of the trees. It was as if the world had tilted, and they were teetering on the edge of something unfathomable. "Sarah, we need to go!" Tom's voice cut through the chaos, but the desperation in his tone only rooted her further in place. The lights flared again, a blinding flash that momentarily swallowed the night. And in that instant, she glimpsed something in the periphery, a shadow moving within the field, just beyond the reach of the illumination. It felt almost sentient, a dark mass weaving through the patterns as if it were a part of the very energy that surged around them. "Did you see that?" she gasped, her heart pounding in her chest like a trapped bird. "There's something out there." Tom turned his gaze towards the field, his expression shifting from fear to a strange mix of wonder and trepidation. "What if it's—" "Don't say it," Sarah interrupted, a sudden wave of dread washing over her. The thought of what could be lurking in the shadows sent her mind spiraling. What if they had inadvertently drawn attention to themselves? What if the energy they felt was not just curiosity but something more sinister? The pulsating lights dimmed for a moment, and in the ensuing darkness, the atmosphere thickened, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. It was then that they both sensed it, a weighty silence that pressed down on them as if the universe itself had paused to observe their plight. Every instinct screamed at them to run, yet they remained, paralyzed by a mix of fear and an inexplicable pull towards the unknown. "Sarah." Tom's voice was barely a whisper now, laced with a fear that mirrored her own. "We should get out of here." But as he spoke, the ground shuddered again, and the lights flared back to life, casting long shadows that danced and writhed like phantoms in the night. They felt it, an energy that thrummed through the air, wrapping around them, pulling them closer to the formation. It beckoned them, whispering promises of answers and revelations, yet cloaked in an ominous veil that hinted at dangers untold. In that moment, Sarah realized they were at a crossroads, teetering between fear and fascination, caught in a web spun by forces that defied understanding. The unknown loomed before them, a vast expanse of darkened possibility, and as the lights pulsed like a heartbeat, they were left with a singular, haunting question. What awaited them in the depths of that cosmic mystery? The morning sun stretched across the desolate landscape, casting long shadows over the field where the formation had appeared. Sarah and Tom stood at the edge of the crop circle, the remnants of the night's terror still clinging to them like a second skin. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, the kind that weighed heavily on the soul, as if nature itself was holding its breath. The once vibrant colors of the corn stood dulled, their green hue tinged with a sickly yellow, as if they had witnessed something unnatural. As they stepped closer, the intricate patterns of the formation became clearer. The geometrical shapes twisted and turned, spiraling into one another with an eerie perfection that defied explanation. It was both beautiful and grotesque, a display of nature's artistry intertwined with something far more sinister. The ground beneath their feet felt oddly warm, radiating a heat that was foreign to the cool morning air. It was a stark reminder that whatever had transpired here was not just a figment of their imagination. "Look at this," Tom said, crouching down to inspect the edges of one of the circles. The plants were bent over, perfectly flattened but not broken. There was no sign of struggle, no evidence of trampling. It was as if they had been carefully pressed down by an unseen force, a whisper of something that had touched them and then vanished without a trace. The air shimmered with a metallic scent, sharp and invasive, urging them to breathe it in, to understand what it meant. Sarah's heart raced as she knelt beside him, fingers brushing against the soft, yellowing corn. "It doesn't make sense," she murmured, her voice barely breaking the silence. "How could this happen overnight, and why here?" Tom's brow furrowed in thought, his eyes darting around the field as if searching for answers hidden among the stalks. "Maybe it's some kind of message? A warning?" he suggested, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Fear danced in the back of his mind, a shadowy figure lurking just beyond the light of reason. A rustle in the distance snapped their attention. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it sent a jolt of electricity through Sarah's veins. The sound was both familiar and alien, like the whispering of the wind through the trees, yet layered with an undercurrent of something that felt wrong. It was as if the very earth was speaking to them, its ancient voice echoing secrets long buried. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her eyes widening as she strained to listen. The rustling grew louder, accompanied by a low hum that vibrated through the air, resonating deep within her bones. It felt like a call, a beckoning from something unseen. Tom nodded, his expression shifting from curiosity to dread. "We should go," he urged, the urgency in his voice a stark contrast to the calm that surrounded them. But something held Sarah in place, a magnetic pull toward the center of the formation, where the energy seemed to coalesce into a tangible presence. "Just a little longer," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "What if there's something we're meant to understand?" As if in response, the ground shuddered beneath them once more, a deep rumble that reverberated through their feet and up into their chests. The hum intensified, wrapping around them like a shroud, pulling them deeper into its embrace. The sky darkened subtly, clouds gathering like an impending storm, casting an ominous shadow over the field. Suddenly a bright flash illuminated the formation, momentarily blinding them. Sarah squinted against the light, her heart pounding in her ears. In that brief moment of brilliance, she thought she saw shapes moving within the patterns, fleeting glimpses of something that defied logic, something that felt alive. "Sarah," Tom shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her back. "We need to leave now." She stumbled, torn between the safety of retreat and the intoxicating allure of the unknown. The hum morphed into a chorus of discordant notes, rising and falling, swirling around them like a tempest. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a cosmic symphony that promised answers yet threatened to consume them whole. As they turned to flee, Sarah's gaze darted back to the formation, and she caught a glimpse of something shimmering at its center, a small metallic object glinting in the dim light. It beckoned to her, a silent promise of revelation. But the moment passed, and the darkness closed in around them, swallowing their curiosity whole. They raced back toward the dirt road, their breaths coming in ragged gasps, hearts pounding in sync with the echo of that otherworldly hum. The weight of their discovery pressed down on them, heavy and unyielding. As they reached the safety of the road, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that whatever they had encountered was not merely a phenomenon of the night, but a doorway, an invitation into a realm of mysteries that transcended their understanding. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the land. Yet the beauty felt tainted, overshadowed by the darkness that lingered just beyond their perception. They had seen something unexplainable, something that stirred a primal fear within them. As they drove away, the field receded into the distance, but the weight of its secrets followed them, a haunting reminder that they were not alone in the vastness of the universe. And as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, a single pulse of light flickered in the field, illuminating the formation one last time. A silent witness to the cosmic dance they had unwittingly entered, leaving behind a lingering question. What had they truly uncovered? And what would it mean for them in the days to come? The air was thick, with a tension that seemed to reverberate in their chests as Tom and Sarah sped away from the field, the gravel crunching beneath the tires of their old pickup, each jolt echoing the tumultuous chaos inside them. The sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows that stretched across the landscape like fingers reaching for the past. Sarah's mind raced, replaying the moments they had just escaped. The hum that had entwined with the night, the shimmering object that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat, and the oppressive feeling of being watched. It all coalesced into a singular, haunting memory. What was that? Tom finally broke the silence, his voice strained barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart still hammering as she glanced over her shoulder as if the darkness itself might leap from the shadows. But it felt alive, Tom, like it was waiting for us. The road twisted through the rural expanse, flanked by fields that loomed ominously in the twilight. Cornstalks, once towering sentinels in the daylight, now appeared distorted and menacing in the fading light. The night would soon swallow the world whole, yet the echoes of their experience reverberated louder than the cicadas that began their nightly chorus. Sarah felt a chill creep along her spine, the remnants of adrenaline mingling with a primal fear she could not shake. Back in town, they found themselves at the local diner, an unassuming establishment that had served as the backdrop for many shared moments. But tonight, the familiar atmosphere felt alien, as if the very fabric of reality had shifted just enough to make everything seem slightly askew. They slipped into a booth, the vinyl seats sticky beneath them, and the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing faintly in the background. "Coffee?" Tom asked, his eyes darting around the room, searching for something he couldn't quite articulate. "Yeah, I think I need it," Sarah replied, her thoughts still entangled with the metallic glint they had seen, the way it had promised knowledge yet felt like an omen. What if we're not the only ones who saw it? Tom frowned, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "You think someone else might have come across that formation? Or maybe it's just us. Maybe we're just imagining things." But as her gaze wandered to the window, a flicker of movement caught her eye. She squinted into the darkness, the last remnants of light fading fast. Shadows danced beyond the glass, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw a figure standing at the edge of the field, illuminated by an otherworldly glow. Her heart lurched. "Tom!" she gasped, pointing toward the window. "Look!" But when he turned, the field was empty, the darkness swallowing everything in its embrace. What do you see?" "Nothing," she whispered, her voice trembling. It was just there. The weight of her words hung heavily in the air, a reminder of the uncertainty lingering between them. As the night deepened, they returned home, the silence enveloping them like a shroud. Sarah's thoughts spiraled, each question leading to another, each possibility more unsettling than the last. Why had they been drawn to that formation? What had they truly witnessed? The metallic scent still clung to her nostrils, a lingering reminder of the mystery that felt almost palpable, yet just out of reach. Days passed with an agonizing slowness, the unease settling deep within her like a stone. The town buzzed with chatter about the strange occurrences in the fields, but each whispered conversation felt like shards of glass scraping against her nerves. The formation had been discovered by other curious souls, and rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed it was a prank, others whispered of ancient symbols and cosmic messages. Sarah found herself visiting the site again, drawn by an inexplicable force that both terrified and captivated her. She stood at the edge of the field, the moon casting an eerie glow over the earth. The patterns were still there, etched into the soil, perfect circles and intricate lines that defied explanation. The air was electric, humming with a resonance that sent shivers down her spine. This was not just soil, it was a canvas of secrets, an invitation into something greater. But as she stepped closer, a sense of foreboding washed over her. She could almost hear the whispers of the earth, soft, melodic, yet laced with an urgency that quickened her pulse. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, yet she pressed on, drawn to the center of the formation where that metallic object had glinted. Suddenly a rustle in the cornfield sent her heart racing. She turned sharply, the night closing in around her, the shadows twisting as if alive. The hum returned, pulsating from the earth, resonating through her very bones. It was as if the ground itself was breathing, calling to her, urging her to listen. And then she saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the field, partially obscured by the darkness, yet radiating an otherworldly glow. Her breath hitched, a mixture of awe and terror gripping her throat. Was this what they had sensed all along? Something watching them, waiting. As she stepped back, the figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows, leaving only the pulsating hum that now felt more urgent, more alive. She stumbled, falling to her knees, the reality of her discovery crashing over her like a wave. The metallic object, was it a key to understanding, or a harbinger of something far more sinister? In that moment she realized that they had uncovered a truth too profound to comprehend, a cosmic intersection of their lives with something ineffable. The sensation of being watched returned, this time accompanied by a profound understanding that they were merely players in a larger narrative, one that spanned the cosmos and connected them to forces beyond their understanding. And as she knelt there, heart racing, she felt the ground beneath her pulse with a life of its own, a silent promise that the mysteries of the universe were far from over. The finality of their encounter hung in the air, heavy and laden with unanswered questions. What had they stumbled upon? What did it mean for them, and for the world? As the night deepened, Sarah could only gaze into the darkness, a mixture of fear and wonder swirling within her. The answer remained elusive, yet the feeling of something alive lingered, an undeniable truth that she could not ignore. They had opened a door, but what lay beyond it would forever remain a question, one that would haunt them, echoing in the recesses of their minds long after the lights had faded.